Welcome to another edition of the Sidelines Past podcast. I'm your co-host, Chris Courtney, alongside Joshua Thompson, senior writer for Sidelines. Today, we will be discussing some of the latest
shooting, which has been established for the Warriors throughout the season, is going to be the key for them winning this series entirely. At any time, if they go cold, any one of their shooters starts missing on a consistent basis, if there's a hole in that offense, for instance, which I'll touch on in a minute, Harrison Barnes being that little bit of a hole, losing the ball to Trevor times in and out. That's reason number two. You have to keep your offense consistent as far as hitting your shots. And the third thing, defense. So you saw a lot of switching on defense off of Steph Curry. You saw a tandem between James Harden. You saw a little bit of Trevor Reason there. You saw a couple players just playing off of the pick and trying to somewhat harbor Steph Curry. But the thing is that no one stayed home on him. No one tried to run him off of the three-point line. And then you saw this very big turnaround, and the result was the Warriors leading at halftime. Staying home is going to be the key to the defensive transition to offense, which is always what gets the Warriors going. The first one is that the consistency of offense is going to be key for whoever takes the series. Early that they were going to go inside, went inside of Dwight Howard. Granted, he had a very early injury. Hopefully he'll be ready for game two. But consistently going to him inside was what worked for the Rockets. As soon as the Rockets went away from that, it seemed that the basket opened up. You need a guard, not five, not four. So he put Ariza on Barnes, who started this game, which is actually a really good thing. And that turned into some really great turn for the Warriors throughout the season, is going to be the key for them winning this series entirely. At any time, if they go cold, if any one of their shooters starts on a consistent basis, if there's a hole in that offense, for instance, which I'll touch on in a minute, Harrison Barnes being that little bit of a hole, and that's going to be the end result of the series. Your offense consistent as far as hitting your shots. And the third thing, defense. So you saw a lot of switching on defense off of Steph Curry. You saw a tandem between James Harden. You saw a little bit of Trevor Reason there. You saw a couple players trying to somewhat harbor Steph Curry. But the thing is that no one stayed home on him.
Even more credit goes to kind of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and just the threat that they are on the floor. Thompson didn't have that great of a game, but Steph Curry had, over 30 points and played kind of his typical game. It's interesting.
Get out and they score quick. You saw that a very quick 6-point transition there late in the third quarter, which is going to be quick. And also
game, and it puts so
much to keep the ball from being turned over so many times. Harrison Barnes is a great scorer. He came alive during the series against the Grizzlies, and you definitely see that Mikal kind of noted that. He knows that there are six
going into this season compared to Golden State. You have Patrick Beverley, you have Monty Eunice, who both of those players are out for this series.
That turned into some really great turnovers because Barnes isn't used to handling the ball. So if you can keep that intensity up, if you're Houston, and pound the ball inside, or if you're the Warriors, keep Harden from scoring on the perimeter, keep on the interior, then you're going to have a really great series. And that,
but he is their go-to guy on offense. Something I kind of wanted to ask you about is with now Dwight Howard kind of getting dinged up. We don't really know the severity of his injury. It didn't look like it was that big of a deal because he continued to play, but you wonder how that might impact him the game. But Steph Curry had over 30 points and played kind of his tip kind of it allows these other players who are completely capable of having an impact on the game to have an impact on the game. And it's
build your offense, and your offense starts from the inward out. If you have no interior defense, then no one's ever going to guard the paint.
As far as their depth, they somewhat comparable depth, going into season compared to Golden State. You have Patrick Beverley, you have Monty Eunice, who both of those players are out.
Points, rebounds, block shots. It doesn't matter what category he's being dominant in. His presence is enough to change the defense of the opposing team. It's also enough to swing
Ariza to a much bigger load than maybe they should be carrying. He's played actually really good so far in these playoffs. And in game one, he had a really nice quality game again. and he's a great defender. But at the same time, it's just like he can't guard everybody. And James Harden can't be expending all that energy on the defensive end because he is their go-to guy on offense. Something I kind of wanted to ask you about is with now Dwight Howard, kind of severity of his injury. It didn't look like it was that big of a deal because he was need to play, but you wonder how that might impact him, moving forward in this series. Do you think that it's going to play a major role in kind of
not necessarily from the three-point line? I think that Josh Smith is going to be a really good sort of like a Chris Bosh type of scorer, really great from the baseline jump shooter, be able to stretch that defense a little bit, kind of open it up for guys like Corey Brewer to come in and dominate the interior. And I think it might change it a little bit, not so much enough to where Kevin McHale's going to end and kind of go to something completely different. Because if you notice that they don't play a lot of pick and roll offense through Dwight Howard and James Harden. They play a lot of pick and roll offense through Dwight Howard and one of the other guards on the exterior. James Harden plays a lot of ISO ball, a lot of clear out offense. And so he's going to be able to play his game continuously. Kevin McHale's going to shape his offense around that going forward. Yeah. Experiment early on in the season because he can shoot the ball and he does stretch it. But if you don't do it on a consistent enough basis, then there's nothing really to worry about there. However, when you add guys like Josh Smith later on in the season,
before the Rockets went on their run in the previous round versus the Clippers, I had zero confidence that Dwight Howard could be that difference maker that he's fully capable of being. Mm-hmm. But he hadn't really shown a point. Coming off an injury and just kind of his track record, he didn't really suggest that was possible. Certainly, I was wrong on that. He was maybe the biggest reason why the Rockets had such a good closeout to that series and ended up winning that series because he was productive on the interior. They're going to need him to be that player in this series and to be healthy. But I do think it's important to note that the Rockets clinched the 2 seed in the West without Dwight Howard for much of this, and so
completely scrap his strategy and go to something completely different. Because if you notice that they don't play a lot of pick and roll offense through Dwight Howard and James Harden.
You're going to want to be as multifaceted as possible come playoff time, but it's not going to be as big of a shock to the Rockets system without Howard as it might be had they been relying on him throughout the. I think one thing too that is kind of interesting is James Harden. He's put up kind of James Harden type numbers, but there are times when you see him kind of almost reluctantly assume kind of the scoring role, which is it's I don't know if it's necessarily a knock on him because he's always been kind of a guy to that point. Coming off an injury and just kind of his track record, he didn't really suggest that was possible. Certainly, I was wrong on that. He was maybe the biggest reason why the Rockets had such a good closeout to that series and ended up winning that series because he was productive on the interior. They're going to need him to be that player in this series, and they're going to need him to be healthy. But I do think it's important to note that the Rockets clinched the 2 seed in the West without Dwight Howard for much of the entire game. You can't have him kind of fade in and out like he has a tendency to do.
Right. Well, okay, 3 things. Houston Rockets fans, don't depend on the Jordan rule. Second thing is that Harden will get his, and the third thing I have to add to that is to +3. He will get his when he needs to. A Kevin McHale system only works if you work within the system. Point blank.
Yes. Kind of almost reluctantly assume kind of the scoring role.
Was the game. Although 0.05 seconds was the difference in between that being true or not. But given this series, what you need to look for is, again, going back to consistency of offense. They know what works. If James Harden doesn't work in the fourth quarter, taking the last jump shot within the last 5 seconds, you're not going to see that. If they're seeing a much more effective shot, if they're seeing a player, if they're seeing someone in the post like Lee or Bogut.
It worrisome if you're a Rockets fan is you just don't. Again, James Harden's
easy to, or they're going to have to foul him and someone's going to get fouled out. You have to play smart when you're a guy like Kevin McHale, when you're a guy that's playing form like James Harden. So you can't always have those moments where you're saying, I'm just going to take over the ball and say, forget the team. I scrap the play. We're not LeBron James. It doesn't matter. That's not going to win you this series. Smart ball, consistent defense, and consistent play in your offense is definitely going to win it. And if James Harden is doing a great job right now. Second thing is that Harden will get his, and the third thing, he knows in the back of his head the game plan, and right at that point, it's not when he needs to take over the game.
Speaking of kind of dominating the game, or in this case, dominating the press conference, Steph Curry's daughter is drawing a lot of headlines in the aftermath of Game 1 for being a little bit disruptive. She is a 2-year-old girl after all.
The game, although .05.
I'll spend too much time on this because I'd like to get to the Hawks and Cavs and kind of preview that a little bit. But there has been a lot of back and forth on social media, and if you watch ESPN throughout the day,
5 seconds, you're not going to see that. If they're seeing a much more effective shot, if they're seeing a player, someone in the post like Lee or Bogut that's got 5 fouls, dump it into Howard. Don't be dumb. You're easy to, or they're gonna have to foul him and someone's gonna get fouled out. You have to play smart when you're a guy like Kevin McHale, when you're a guy that's playing form like James Harden. It's parents' job, and you have to sit there for about half an hour, maybe an hour, sit in a daycare while your parents go to the gym. Kudos to you, because you are that child that's sitting on stage. Okay, smart ball, consistent defense, and consistent play in your offense is definitely going to win it. And if James Harden is doing a great job right now, and Steph Curry represents the parent that says, hey, I can be a great parent, a great dad in this case, and do my job too. So all you haters out there, you can go ahead and step to the side. This is a big deal. Actually, it gave some great character to an otherwise it was a very boring press conference anyway. I mean, he was there.
Is drawing a lot of headlines in the aftermath of Game 1 for being a little bit disruptive. She is a 2-year-old girl after all. You expect, but I don't want to spend too much time on this because I'd like to get to the Hawks and Cavs. A lot of back.
I don't really want to be here. I don't want to babysit. They might not even have kids. Who cares? Father of the Year right there. Just seeing that moment right there.
All as far as press conferences go, and Steph Curry handled the situation really well, and I don't think honestly, we've seen instances kind of similar to this in the past. For those who have ever attended a press conference, that they are pretty much the most overrated thing in the entire world. There is really nothing of substance typically that gets said.
And Steph Curry, I can be a great parent, a great dad in this case, and do my job too. So all you haters out there, you can to the side.
Much unless it's a really big personality, maybe like a Shaquille O'Neal. This is almost entertaining because so surly with the media, but I think those who are making kind of talking about the sanctity of the press conference, and that's not what is really going on. I think Brian Windhorst, and people have been kind of jumping on him lately because he was one of the initial people, at least, to kind of voice their kind of dismay at this. He wasn't as harsh against having the NBA outlaw kids in press conferences as I thought. I watched his interview, and he said, "Hey, we all acknowledge that it was a light moment, and it really wasn't that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things."
Mm-hmm.
I thought the point he made that was kind of good towards this was the fact that you do have kids there, and if it's someone on the losing team, it does in some ways prevent the press from maybe asking a tough question or doing something that it forces the player, the athlete, to come there. it just kind of creates a weird dynamic there for if you're trying to do your job as a professional. But by and large, I think, yeah, obviously, much ado about nothing, and I think it's pretty silly too. People who have been so boisterous and kind of against it. I mean, how could you not? The little amount of things that he says is almost entertaining because it's so surly with the media. But I think those who are making, kind of talking about the sanctity of the press conference, and that's really going on. I think Brian Windhorst, and people have been kind of jumping on him lately because he was one of the initial people, at least, to kind of voice their kind of dismay at this. He wasn't as harsh against having the NBA outlaw kids in press conferences as I thought. I watched his interview, and he said, "Hey, we all acknowledge that it was a light moment, and it really wasn't that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things." Mm-hmm. But I thought good towards this was the fact that you do have kids there, and if it's someone on the losing team, it does in some ways prevent the press from maybe asking a tough question or doing something that it forces the player, the athlete, to come forward with and kind of projecting the series going forward. Do you think that has any credence as far as the series goes? Do you think the Hawks maybe have the Cavs number, or is playoff basketball just so different that you've got to kind of throw that out the window?
Playoff basketball is always entirely and it's not just at the professional level, it's any level. A tournament is a different beast altogether. We see this at multiple levels all the time. And when it comes to this series, I just noted on this, yes, the Hawks own the season series, but you also have to note a couple of things. And I know this, Teague is not going to be able to stay in front of Kyrie Irving all day. And Carroll is not going to be able to stay in LeBron James if he's guarding LeBron James at this moment, as we speak right now. So those are two things that are definitely going to be big. But, of course, you have your presences on the wing. And I think that when it comes down to this series, what's really going to matter are the role players. Role players have made a difference in Game 1 for the Warriors and the Rockets. They made a difference in the divisional series, the semifinal series for both conferences. They're going to make a difference this series. So it's going to come down to Shumpert. It's going to come down to Korver. It's going to come down to J.R. Smith. So those three guys right there, as long as you see their production increase, you're definitely going to see a great series. Given, though, this is the Eastern Conference Finals, so free throws are going to be the biggest thing that matters because they're going to be the biggest decisive factor in between either a very close game or an easily won game. James has been known to miss free throws late in the season, late in the playoffs. So maybe along the line, they tire the workhorse out and start to foul him early on in the quarter just to see if he starts missing some of those same free throws. If you start to see a 9 of 19 from Cleveland going, you'll see to 85 type of game with Atlanta maybe stealing a couple games coming out on top.
Statement, but I think it's going to be very important to win those games. I mean, those are very important because allowing and that's the thing though. Cleveland is a team that is obviously with LeBron James and kind of the talent that they've got. Even with Kyrie Irving banged up, you're going to count out a LeBron James led team. They're a team that's very capable of winning on the road, as they proved in the series against Chicago when they were undermanned for at least late in that series. The Hawks don't have that power, that guy that they lean on, which in some ways is really good. They play great team basketball, and people have likened them to the Spurs as far as their team approach to the game. But at the same time, they don't have that one guy who's proven himself, unlike the Spurs, to kind of be a big-time player in crunch time. Is a lights-out shooter. Al Horford, quality players who have done something before. You're going up against a team that led by LeBron James, who is about as seasoned as any veteran in the league right now. A guy and Tristan Thompson. Matthew Dellavedova. I mean, they've got people who are stepping up and were kind of unafraid of the moment, or at least have proven themselves to be unafraid of the moment. I'm really interested in watching this series is Damari Carroll. I think he has his assignment on LeBron James is huge, and he's not going to stop LeBron James. But if he can make him really work for all the points that he gets, if he can be kind of a pest, make kind of if this series goes to 6 or 7 games, that they can kind of outlast Cleveland, who is dealing with injuries. I think the injury for the foot injury for Kyrie Irving could be a big deal too. He's a guy that's proven that he can play through the injury. He's a tough guy, but having just a little bit of an off night. Maybe not the typical LeBron that we're used to seeing.
Off of James in order to help Teague. If you see that, this might not be such a good series for the Hawks. I think that they were to stay home on every single person. Not saying that he shouldn't help at all, because if you have the opportunity to do it, but just make sure you can get back. But I think if Kyrie and James start playing this 1-2 ball and they start thriving off of it, you're going to have to go back to the drawing board, possibly bring a couple of guys, Pero Antic, backdoor offense going on. But I think that in the end, it's definitely going to be who's going to play better defense. That's it.
In the playoffs, it's these games kind of can tend to turn into kind of a grinded out type of game. Emerges victorious. So yeah, no, I agree. I think it's going to be one of those things is who's going to be able to impose their will more on the defensive end, maybe even more so than that Golden State Houston series, just because you've got two teams that they've got people who can score the ball, but it's really good. I think it's going to really kind of focus down and narrow down to, hey, can you get a stop? Get a key stop when it really matters. That's what it's than any other series that's been played in these playoffs and that will be played moving forward. NBA draft lottery was yesterday, and the Minnesota Timberwolves secured the #1 pick. They would have a very tough time seeing them do. They will have 3 consecutive #1 picks on their team. A lot of people think that the T-Wolves are kind of a juggernaut in the making because of the young talent that they have acquired through the draft in past years. If you were the T-Wolves and the #1 pick right now, I guess what is going? Who's the pick for you? And give us a reason why.
Go Milicic.
Wow.
Don't do that. You have a team that has a need at first off interior defense or interior scoring. One of the two, they're kind of interchangeable. If you look at a guy like Dwight Howard, if you can get someone that can score like that and stay healthy, which is always going to be the big key with the #1 pick, then that have a bunch of guys on the board that can do that. If you go for an Okafor, then what you're saying to Wiggins is that we're going to pair you with another scorer, or you're probably telling Okafor that you're going to have to probably play the 4 in this position, which isn't bad because they need someone on the inside, period, that can score. Or you can go for a 3-point specialist, number of guards on the board that are really great at the 3 ball, not consistent, but great at it, very explosive shooters, got some really good scoring batches in there. Or you can go with someone that might be able to pair with Ricky Rubio to handle the ball on the perimeter, which definitely help continue to stretch that offense and allow Wiggins to improve with that offense. These guys really are in a great spot to do whatever they want. So let's not put a name in here and just see who they get and analyze what happens out.
I'm going to say Karl Anthony Towns is the and I think reason being is I think he gives them a guy who is very capable as a defender down low. Him and Gorgie can make a very formidable defensive front line for the T-Wolves, especially when you consider kind of the oft-injured Nikola Pekovic. I think they're paying him like close to $12 million a year in particular. I mean, he missed a boatload of games to injury, and I think if he can't really count on a guy like that. You need to go with a low post guy, and I think you need to kind of trend towards defense, maybe oppose the offense, because you've got a brilliant scorer or a potentially brilliant scorer in Andrew Wiggins. You've got a guy like Zach LaVine who looked incredible. You've got a guy like Shabazz Muhammad who's got a lot of talent. Ricky Rubio is a great facilitator, and I think you need to kind of build up that defense if you're Minnesota. So I think Karl Anthony Towns is probably the best pick. I think Okafor's got potential to be an imposing defender, but he hasn't really totally shown that 1 year that he was Duke. So I think it's hard to go wrong if you're the T-Wolves in that position. I do agree with you. I think that let's analyze the pick later, but I think if you have to make a pick, which they're going to have to do, I think it's got to be Towns. With the Knicks sliding to number 4, a lot of people, and this has been kind of discussed on Sidelines, a lot of people are kind of saying, hey, that's a blow to the New York Knicks. I don't think so as much personally, but I'd like to get your take on the Knicks sliding to 4 and what that might mean for them moving forward.
That has a whole new coach, new GM, got new people in the front office, new guys on the court. No one knows who the superstar is, and your all-star, Carmelo Anthony, has been riding the pine, sitting in a hospital bed, just watching the Knicks play from home because he's been injured this entire season. Hopefully he loses some weight and comes back, and what you're looking at is you're going to need help everywhere. So if you pick up the guy from the Y, if you get a guy from Rucker Park, one pick, if you get the last pick in the NBA draft, it doesn't matter what pick you get, Knicks fans. I just want to let you know right now, number 4 is actually a really great pick because what you can see is the top 3 guys that everyone considered, which I guarantee you one of those guys are going to be from outside of the States. One of those guys is going to be the international guy. But when you get to number 4, stay home, see who's left, and then get the top guy out of there because you need help everywhere, except at the power forward position. Don't take that away from Anthony. Let him finish out, and then let him tell you that if he needs a great point guard, if he needs a great shooting guy, if he needs someone in the paint. And I hope that they get someone on the interior to start out with because it seems like this Knicks offense is definitely going to thrive a lot more with a passing interior center or power forward. If you can get someone that can pass like Powell or Marc Gasol or can easily dominate like a Zach Randolph, that's just a big, burly guy that can clear out lanes for guys like Carmelo Anthony, that would be a very good start. Then you can worry about picking apart in later rounds to try to get some guards to pass to.
And this will probably be a different discussion for us for another day. But I think really if sliding to 4 makes things pretty simple for the Knicks. I mean, I think at that position they're gonna get they're gonna get one of the top 4 players in the draft. And honestly, I don't think there's much of a difference 1 through 4 if you're looking at Karl Anthony Towns, Jahlil Okafor, D'Angelo Russell, and Emmanuel Mudiay. I think all those guys are very similarly talented overall. They just play different positions. I think, and like you said, Knicks need help everywhere. So if you're at number 4, it makes things really simple. If Mudiay falls to you, you pick him because you need a point guard. If D'Angelo Russell falls to you, pick him because you could definitely use a combo guard who's a very proficient scorer and who's willing to pass the ball. I liken him to very similarly to James Harden, multi-dimensional. I don't think they're going to get one of the top big guys, but they're going to have plenty of cap space come the offseason. So Marc Gasol. They could sign a player that could kind of address those needs in the front court. This isn't all doom and gloom for the Knicks, and I don't, because if you look at the situation that they are in right now, as long as they're in the top 4, if they fell to 5, then I could say, hey, that's a pretty bad situation. But 4 and having the picks that or the potential to pick the players that are going to be there, I think it's a situation that works out actually pretty well for New York. So
absolutely,
it'll be a very interesting situation looking at the draft kind of moving forward. The draft is on June 25th, so we've got about another month to kind of break down these guys, and we will be discussing other things. This will kind of wrap up the show for today. Next week, we hope to have a third panelist join us. We will be talking time until next week. For Joshua Thompson, I am Chris Courtney. Thank you for tuning in to the Sidelines Past.